So in the first part, I talked about the changing nature of raiding and rewards. And in this part, I'm going to run through the potential motivators for running mythic raids and look at the risk-reward considerations to deciding, is mythic raiding worth it? Now, the first motivator that will spring to most people's minds will be gear, of course. WoW is a loot-driven game, and mythic raids give the highest item level rewards in terms of baseline, that is. Of course, loot from anywhere has the potential to cap at the same 985 item level through Titan Forging. The reduction to the chance for a Titan Forge proc in Battle for Azeroth may well work against this, but in the here and now, it could be argued that gear won't be as sound an investment of time purely for gear. So consider this. During the last tier, Tomb of Sargeras, the guild I was in at the time cleared Heroic in the first week. It was easy for us. We were even able to split run the majority of the bosses with crappy alts. However, it took all the way up to the penultimate week of Tomb of Sargeras for that guild to clear Mythic. Less than 1 week to clear Heroic, and over 20 to clear Mythic. And for what? An extra 15 item level baseline? But there may be some who will put in that effort for even small gains. But also consider this. Let's say you spent that same amount of time pursuing gear but not in mythic raids. Let's say you did a normal and a heroic run each week, hoping for the odd Titan Forge. That would only take a few hours at most. Then let's say you spend the rest of the time with similarly skilled players running Mythic Plus dungeons. It could definitely be argued that with many more bites of the loot cherry this way, that you'd end up with enough Titan Forge loot to actually get a better item level than if you run Mythic raiding instead. You could still get the tier and trinkets from the raids, though those pieces would be lower item level, but for other gear, including Bis Relics, you'd be able to run the dungeons many more times than the raid bosses that drop those pieces. Even with a base item level lower than Mythic raid rewards, you could possibly end up with more out of it. That being said, I still believe people would end up with overall better quality gear by running Mythic. You can't hope to make up the 15 item levels with Titan Forging on all pieces, and bear in mind that, well, Mythic gear can Titan Forge as well. There are also some guilds who manage to complete Mythic progress in a month or two with just a few nights a week, although some of those players will spend a huge amount of time preparing with strategies, diagrams and weak auras to help their group out. The majority will just turn up and kill stuff. So the effort requirement may be a bit less for the average player in these sorts of guilds, and so might seem more worthwhile given that raid requirements would quickly condense down to a night or two of farm until the next tier opens. There is also a very different relationship between gear in encounters in Legion. With Titan Forging, it's not uncommon for raiders to be defeating bosses with a higher average item level than the loot that drops. This didn't really happen in the past. For example, I am now 965 item level and still have the 2 toughest bosses to finish off. I'm already above the baseline mythic gear in almost all equipment slots. As such, loot from a first boss kill either has to Titan Forge or at least Warforge or be better itemized in order to be an upgrade. We live in a raid world where it's possible for a drop from a boss you kill for the first time to actually be used for transmog, off-spec or even be disenchanted. But this may actually be one of the things that has driven participation in Mythic raids this expansion. There seems no doubt that there are many more players raiding, including Mythic raiding in Legion, than in Warlords of Draenor. Is the fact that you can outgear the encounters before you complete them, with access to good quality gear in other forms of the raid, as well as Mythic Plus of course, helping to bridge the difficulty gap that many rosters would run into with more modest levels of gear? Is Titan Forging actually helping people get into Mythic? Of course, gear is only one consideration. There's also the challenge aspect and maybe the achievement, title and cosmetic reward that runs with it. In terms of the challenge, raiding is also running alongside Mythic Plus dungeons now. With the effectively endless difficulty of dungeons, there is definitely challenge to be had with pushing higher and higher keys with a dedicated group of dungeoneers. It's a very different experience to that of raiding, of course. And I personally prefer the much grander scale of raids to dungeons. For me, raids lost a lot of the epicness, even when it dropped from 25 to 20 man. And I remember 40 man raiding. Though even then it's still more exciting for me than 5-man content, but that's me personally. But for those that aren't as focused on the large scale cooperative PvE, Mythic Plus dungeons do now allow for a serious challenge to be overcome in a small scale group work scenario. Then there comes the longer term but cosmetic rewards. The cutting edge achievement and the associated title can't be put off. If you don't complete them before the next tier is released, you will never obtain them. Anyone who sticks at it will get it before the pre-expansion patch disables it. But for raid tiers earlier in an expansion, the cutting edge achievement is something for which you will just get a few months and it will be stamped on your account forevermore if you achieve it. The mounts of course are still obtainable after the next tier comes out, but it's generally only cutting edge guilds who can farm it often enough to get everyone a guaranteed mount. Of course, even here it could be argued that cutting edge might still be obtainable without the hassle. If you reside on a well-populated realm, you may well be able to buy it for enough gold. Of course, nobody looking into matters will be fooled into thinking you earned the achievement, but you'll still have it, and it certainly takes less time and effort to farm the gold to buy it than it does to progress through the full Mythic raid. Then there's the armor sets. Different modes have different variants on the armor sets, and so running Mythic raids gives you the chance to obtain the unique skins for this. Mythic raid armor also has distinctive shoulders, if you're into that sort of thing. This is more difficult to simply buy, as you'd need to pay for potentially many runs and full clears unless you get lucky. These cosmetic skins are also longer lasting, as you use them for transmog long after the raid tier is finished with. However, they could potentially be farmed later on with a small group or even solo in subsequent expansions. So whether you raid for gear, achievements, transmog, mounts, titles, or the desire to overcome the challenge, there is no doubt that Mythic raiding will require a much greater effort, time invested, and it carries with the possibility of failure. Mythic raiding carries with it a natural competitiveness, whether you're competing to try and get cutting edge, or finish in the top 50, the top 10, or even world first, whether you're competing for raid spots in your roster, pursuing percentiles on Warcraft logs, or just competing with other guilds on your own realm, Mythic raiding provides an outlet for competitive personalities that will make it worthwhile for a lot of people. That being said, it won't be for everyone, and there's nothing wrong with asking the question, is it worth it? People ask this and decide that it's not all the time. Every tier, the typical guild is likely to lose at least one person to this. But at the same time, there will be people who've only played the game more casually for some time and then decide, yes, now is the time I'd like to step up and try Mythic raiding. For them, the rewards do seem worthwhile, as well as for the legion of raiders, pun intended, who've always tried to raid hard mode. So I hope this video has given you some food for thought. As always, if you did find it interesting, don't forget to give it a like and let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on the reward effort balance. If this is your first time to the channel, please subscribe and turn on notifications to be informed of future content, especially with Battle for Azeroth open testing about to begin. And until next time, I'll see you later.